Over the course of this week, many have spoken about how we can become a we-first society. Many have suggestions on how our government can do more or better. On behalf of the government, I'd like to thank everyone for your suggestions. Our public service will certainly study all these suggestions and especially the new ideas. As I listened to all the speeches, it struck me that actually all of us share pretty much the same objectives. We want a fairer society. We want to give opportunities to everyone, regardless of their background. We want a Singapore that will not only survive, but thrive. And most importantly, we want to give our best to the next generation. We may differ here and there on some details, and those we can discuss. And sometimes our differences are not as large as we make them out to be. And certainly, none of us have a monopoly of care, compassion, or fairness. I think that we can agree. But ultimately, true victory for us is not about winning arguments in this house. True victory for us is winning the trust of our people, uplifting lives, and delivering a better future for all of us. Or as in Chinese, we would say, 口舌之争，胜负一时，行动耕耘，造就。
What we do will make a lifetime for all.
National Day rally speech. A we-first society is not something that the government can force or direct. It will be up to all of us, as fellow Singaporeans, to encourage each other to step forward and take responsibility for one another. As mentioned, we first does not mean there being no place for individual aspirations or expressions. Instead, it is about mobilizing the full spectrum of our society's capabilities, creativity, and commitment to overcome our challenges ahead. Our government will continue to lead where it must and can. We will strive to do more and do better. But having said that, we are realistic enough to know that our government cannot do it all, and certainly not alone. We aspire to evolve from delivering for Singaporeans to also delivering with Singaporeans. I always remember this that was taught to me since young. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. Together, we can overcome anything. In his speech earlier, Mr. Zulkarnain spoke about chess and his life's lesson for his son and Singapore. It inspired me to think about the game of Weiqi, a board game played with white and black pieces. The aim of the game is to fence off more territory than the opponent. However, unlike chess, Weiqi pieces are all the same and are used similarly in the game. Just like the Weiqi pieces, our individual efforts may be insignificant, but together, all of us play a part, and any one of us can be that strategic piece in the evolving formation to win the game as the circumstances evolve. Perhaps that is the Singapore that we can all aspire to. And today I will share my reflections on ways we can deliver with our people and progress towards a we-first society. Let me first start with security. The world has changed. Yes, the world will change even more and faster in the years to come. We must prepare ourselves for a much wider range of scenarios than ever before, including dangerous discontinuities. We should not count on assumptions that have guided us for decades, nor should we expect other countries to respect international laws and norms as in the past. The question is, how do we anticipate, preempt, and respond collectively? And I say collectively. And that's because I think all of us can and need to contribute. And if I may, I can suggest 4 lines of effort. for all of us. First, understand the world deeply. Second, create propositions for us to remain relevant. Third, maintain our cohesion. And fourth, uphold our principles. Let me begin with understanding the world deeply. Compared to the past, we all can now access much more information and travel more widely. However, we must not fall into the trap of our own echo chamber to confirm our own biases. There will also be no shortage of external influences that attempt to shape our views and hopefully our positions. To safeguard ourselves from being pulled apart in different directions, we will need to understand our own interests, read ending deeply, speak widely to different people to understand their perspective and agenda, and also to access content with discernment. We have seen this being played out over the Russian-Ukraine conflict, the situation in the Middle East, and even closer to home in the conflicts and contestations that have happened of late. Only when we deeply understand ourselves and the world that we are operating in, can we come up with propositions that are relevant for our partners so that we can be of value add in the relationship. It is a discipline to not just view or read what the search engine algorithms throw at us. It is also a discipline to seek out fresh perspective with all the people we meet in our travels to hopefully bring back new ideas and stress test our own assumptions. And this is why I've consistently encouraged our students in the IHLs and our public service officers who have the opportunity to travel overseas to go beyond the beaten path, go beyond the guided tour that the embassy can organize. And I don't need them to write long reports when they come back. Just come back with a fresh perspective, a new idea that can enrich us. I learned this when I was younger and I was deployed to Indonesia after the fall of Suharto, where our greatest fear was what would happen to this big country. We made it a discipline to travel out of Jakarta at least 7 days a month. We make sure that we cover as many provinces and as many regional commands as we can, making new friends, understanding the diversity of perspective, and never kid ourselves that just because we have been to Jakarta and Bali, that therefore we seem to understand Indonesia. And today, that same principle must apply. Just because we have to Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, it doesn't mean that we understand China, nor just going to California and New York makes us an expert in the US. And in my recent trip to both China and US, we will understand and appreciate the diversity of views and the complex dynamics even within their own country. If we don't understand or appreciate this deeply, we can't come up with value propositions that will make us relevant. However, while we adapt our approaches, we must remain a consistent and principled partner where we can continuously strengthen our relevance for others to want to partner us. I'm sure we want to partner everybody, but that is different from other people wanting to partner us. And this applies in the security and economics domain. While we will not take sides, we must take positions based on principles. Principles that best promote Singapore's long-term survival and success. We are ultimately responsible for our own destiny, but we must earn our right to determine that destiny. Only when we are successful can we have the right to choose our path and not be held ransom or hostage by others. Then we can truly say that we will neither be bribed nor bullied. That is something that we have to earn. Foreign policy is not about balancing, calibrating, and remaining neutral. Being neutral and principled are two different concepts. Neutrality is especially a dangerous concept for small states. Trying to maintain neutrality and balancing without principles will only invite contesting larger powers to put more pressure on us and to try to shift our balancing point. You can imagine if two giants are pulling at us And if we are just trying to maintain neutral, when one side squeezes us a bit harder, we move a bit to that side. What would the other side do? It would just encourage them to squeeze us just as hard so that we move back to the balancing position. And that is why I always encourage all Singaporeans to make a nuanced but important distinction between saying that we are neutral and that we are principled. How then can we remain relevant and earn our right to be principled and be valued on the global stage? We need to have our own perspectives and not be a mouthpiece or proxy for others. We need to develop capabilities that cannot be easily replicated by others. The ability to think and execute long term. The ability to build trust internally and externally. The ability to foster cohesion amidst diversity. But ultimately, we need real capabilities in all domains from economics to defense for others to see value in working with us. External parties have asked me what makes the SAF strong. Our disciplined investment in equipment and people over the years have certainly helped. But to me, the biggest advantage of the SAF has over many others is that we can draw upon the talent and energies of our entire nation. The best operational and technical ideas do not just come from our regulars, technicians, or scientists. They come from all over, our NSF, our NSMENs, and even our pre-enlistees. Today, if you fly the UAVs in the Singapore Armed Forces, you will see them using a console that's exactly like the PlayStation console. This idea came about many years ago from our pre-enlistees. They help us to design the systems even before they come into NS, and when they come into the NS, the system is ready for them. When I was a young officer, the first person to introduce computers into our battle planning process was not a regular. He was an NS man working in Apple. And he was wondering why we were still using pen, paper, and talc. That is the power of the SAF, drawn from our people. This is a concept of all of us chipping in to deliver with, a mindset of delivering with, to build defense capabilities ahead of time. For MINDEF and the SAF, we will continue to spend wisely and consistently. As warfare is redefined, we will make judicious decisions on what to buy, what to build, and what to co-develop with partners. We will also need to evolve our capability development and acquisition processes to deliver at speed. Timeliness rather than perfection matters more very often. By strengthening our indigenous capacities and capabilities and developing unique value propositions, we will position ourselves as a partner of choice in the capability development, technological innovation, and supply chain resilience. Today, this is exactly what DSO, D-Star, ST Engineering are doing. We aim to go beyond a buyer-seller relationship whenever we deal with others. But ultimately, our strongest defense and our strongest deterrence is not any weapon system. It is our collective will to fight for what we believe in. That together, we must contribute as a whole of nation to safeguard our future. Every one of us is in some way MINDEF. And every one of us is also an ambassador, a little ambassador, on behalf of MFA when we interact with the rest of the world. To share with the world what we stand for, how we do business, and why they should trust in us. Let me now move to economics, which is not so different. We also must earn our keep. No one deals with Singapore out of charity or sympathy. We also need to create our own value propositions. This means deeply understanding the market needs and identifying what I call acupuncture points that make it harder for people to bypass us. Many members in this House will be familiar with our experiences during COVID-19. I was then MTI Minister. During the crucial moments, very often, my team and I have to call up partners to ask for essentials, to ask for people to sell us essentials. And even if we have money or more money than others, we don't always get what we wanted. Only when we have what they needed can we trade for what we wanted. It is a lesson that is seared in the minds of all the officers of MTI for generations to come. That is why when EDB goes out and compete for investment, it is not just about making more money only. It is about making ourselves as a critical node that cannot be easily bypassed, so that in times of need, we will have what others need to get what we want. For our economy to be more resilient, many have talked about the need to diversify. Yes, we agree. However, we must also be aware that diversification comes with risks, it requires resources, and it requires our ability to attract and work with talent beyond our own. Now imagine if Singapore, we have only focused on one or two sectors, then surely we would have enough of our own people to staff all those positions in that one or two sectors and achieve critical mass. But when we say that we want to diversify our economy for us to be more resilient, when we say that we want to give more options to our younger generation to chase their dreams in diverse sectors, then we need many more sectors. And we have to admit that it will not be easy for us to achieve critical mass in all these sectors unless we are able to network with the global talent to complement the best in Singapore. And this is why we must continue our efforts to make sure that we remain an attractive partner for others to want to work with us. We must continue to grow our homegrown talent so that we can remain an attractive partner. If we don't have our people that can match up to the best in the world, I'm not sure many people will want to partner us. But there is also an opportunity amidst the crisis now. As the world becomes a more dangerous place, our attractiveness to talent can actually reinforce our competitiveness. This is an opportunity for us, but we will need to carefully balance our needs of integration with competitiveness. So it's not a binary option of 0 or 1. It is about balance. And this will be a topic I am sure we will come back to in this House for many more times to come. It is about balance and never about a binary option. On the other hand, when long-standing platforms or networks no longer work, we will have to set up alternative networks to uphold a more integrated global trading and investment system. Many years ago, we pioneered the comprehensive free trade agreements that went beyond traditional tariff reductions to encompass services, investment, and regulatory cooperation. When the digital economy demanded fresh approaches, we led the creation of the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement, or DEPA, establishing new standards for cross-border data flows, digital trade, and technological cooperation. Now, as the support for free trade and globalization fray, we will work with like-minded partners to create new plurilateral and multilateral networks. For example, DPM GAN has just announced the future of investment and trade partnership to support open and fair trade. This is our little contribution to try to uphold the global free trade order, which is in our interests. And as tariffs and retaliatory tariffs reshape trade and investment flow, there is also an opportunity for us if we can position ourselves as a reliable and resilient partner. Many countries are now talking about their +1 strategy. We aim to be their +1. We can expect to win some and lose some. However, I believe we can still be net positive if we play to our strengths. And we have seen this already being played out in various sectors that I've visited. In the aerospace, MRO sector, semicon, we win some, we lose some, but we can be net positive. To do so, we will double down on our man-made competitive advantages. It is often said that Singapore has no natural resources, but Singapore has many man-made competitive advantages. First, we will continue to invest in our education and workforce. not just for the first 15 years, but for the next 50 years when they are beyond the school years. By uplifting everyone to embrace the latest technological tools to enhance our productivity. That's why AI is part of this important effort, where we have a program called AI for Everyone, just as what we have done for the computerization drive in the late 80s, early 1990s. Second, our ability to uphold the rule of law for investors, to have the confidence to mobilize their capital, aggregate their talent, and protect their IP here, will remain important and more so than ever before. Third, having a stable government and forward-looking public service, so that investors can be confident that we think and execute long-term. This is especially for investments like pharma and semicon that require a long gestation period. So to conclude this section, may I also say that actually we are all also part of EDB and MTI. Because whenever we interact with people overseas, we will also need to pitch. I can understand the concerns that many of us have in the job security front. But the best strategy for us is to make sure that we continue to attract good quality investments so that our people can continue to have the diverse opportunities that they would aspire towards. And all of us, at every opportunity, will have to chip in. And that's why we say we are all part of MTI and EDB. On the social side, let me say that Singapore's success has never been about economic growth alone. Ultimately, economic growth needs to translate into growing the overall pie for Singaporeans, creating good jobs, and enabling all Singaporeans to improve our lives. Every one of us aspire to do better. We also want our next generation to do even better than ourselves. It is only human nature for parents and grandparents to want to give our best that we can do for our children and grandchildren. However, we must not forget that our successes are not just because of our hard work and abilities. It is built upon our society and the help that we receive along the way, which enable us to achieve what we have. And therefore, when we are successful, all of us must remember that we have responsibilities towards those who are further behind. And as societies mature and become more developed, there is always the risk that resources as well as disadvantages get passed on from generation to generation. This accentuates inequality and reduces social mobility, and stratification happens. We see this happening in many countries throughout history. But I think all of us in this house will be united in saying that we don't want to see this happening in Singapore. This is what makes Singapore special. And therefore, the more successful we are, the greater the dangers we face, and the more we need to double and redouble our efforts to break this intergenerational transfer of disadvantage, which many members have spoken about. And as Minister Desmond Lee has spoken yesterday, we will do what we can as a government. We will try to do more and do better. And over the years, as Minister Desmond Lee has said, we have rolled out various programs, Kickstart, Uplift, Comcare, Comlink Plus, you name it, we will try it. We are doing this not just only in the early years of a child's life. We are systematically combing through the entire life cycle of a person to see how we can help everyone who needs the help to break that cycle. It is never-ending work. In fact, the more successful we are, the more we need to try. But we must also see things in context. Our challenge is not so much that the people in our society are left behind, that they are not catching up with the world. Actually, if you look at the statistics, our challenge is slightly different from others. Our challenge is that our gap is the result not of the bottom falling way off the chart. In fact, 80% of our students are above the global average. 90% of our students are above the global average in terms of math and science. Our gap is the result of the top being even further. Now, that tells us two things. So we must diagnose the problem correctly. That tells us two things. First, we should never cap the top, but we must keep lifting the bottom. First, never cap the top and keep lifting the bottom. Second, we must not make our own children feel that just because they are relatively behind, that somehow they have failed themselves or failed us. Our average is way beyond the global average. Even the students from our so-called neighborhood schools, as some of you would describe them, are generally above the global average. When we hosted the ISTP, the International Summit of the Teaching Profession, last year, when other people host, they show us their best school, one school. When we hosted them, we show them 10 schools every day. Any school that they choose, we will allow them to walk into the school. And one of them remarked and asked us, in fact, quite many of them asked us, are you showing us your best school? So he said, no. We are just showing you the diversity of school. We will show you schools from RI to Northlight, because all of them will have different challenges and we will have different curriculum for all of them. In fact, someone remarked that he was most impressed because in Singapore, your zip code does not determine or override your genetic code, as in some other countries. But having said this, we are not done. All these programs by themselves will not be enough. Each of us, even those of us who may not feel that we have the most, can and must contribute in our own ways to support those with less and to uplift the less privileged to keep our society mobile. And this is why we mobilize the time, talent, and treasures of people to complement what the government and taxation already do. This reminds all of us that we have agency and responsibility towards one another. As we hear the calls to do more for various groups, each one meritorious in its own right, we must also be clear-eyed that because resources are finite, we will need to come to a societal consensus about who we should help more. This means that some of us will have to moderate our expectations because there are others who need help more than we do. Everyone gets help, everyone gets something. But not all of us will get the same. And I'm sure members of the House also agree with me that it also doesn't make sense for all of us to get the same. Different strokes for different folks, each according to our needs. I think all of us can agree on this. So let us not be divided by invidious comparison when this is actually executed. I'm sure members of the House would have this experience going around in your hawker centers and markets. Very often, someone will come up and ask, Minister, or MP, why is it that this month I didn't get this payout that my neighbor got? You can try your very best to explain why, but unfortunately, we are all humans, and very often, invidious comparisons set in. But if we are true to what we believe, that we should do more to help those with less, then when we execute this, then we must also help to explain to everyone. In Singapore, we do not have a single yardstick for success. As MOE Minister, I've seen the diversity of talents among Singaporeans, and this is what makes our country resilient and special. As a society, we must truly respect and reward the diversity of strengths and celebrate excellence in multiple fields. And many of us, all this have been said very often. What can we do? I have two humble suggestions. Maybe it's useful for us to start our conversations with our children, not with what grades did you get in school, or how did you score compared to your peers. I've always asked two questions whenever I met the students when I was MOE Minister. First question, can you tell me what makes you special? Because you can score however many A's that you have, but if throughout the education process, you do not know what are your strengths and weaknesses and what makes you special, then I don't think we have succeeded very well. And for a child to know that he or she has something special is very important. It can be a life-changing experience. When I was in school, I thought my mathematics was so-so. One day, my teacher told me that, your mathematics is quite good. And suddenly, I was like, wow, my mathematics is quite good. I must study harder. Simple words. Changed my life. But the other question that I think we can encourage ourselves to ask, especially at Chinese New Year, Hari Raya, Deepavali conversation is this. Perhaps ask our child, not so much as what have you achieved, but ask our child or children, where would you like to make a contribution? And for every child, every Singaporean child growing up to know that regardless of your station in life, you can make a contribution because you have something special in you. And collectively, each of us, just like the Weiqi piece, will come up with that winning formation. So let us respect the diversity of talents, and let us encourage our children to understand what makes them special and how each and every one of them can make a special contribution. Now, beyond government policies and institutions such as the EIP, NS, and our schools, I think many members have also highlighted the need for us to enhance our interactions so that we truly get out of our comfort zone to get to know people who are different from us. And more importantly, through this process, to try and find common ground based on mutual respect. This is something that is a work in progress and something that, as members of parliament, we all need to do. HDB can build us the most beautiful houses and towns, but it is us, the residents, who will build the homes, the most heartwarming homes and communities. So let us not be trapped by this incessant comparison amongst us. Yes, look at the right side of the bell curve to try to aspire to do better, but never forget our responsibility to those who are on the left end of the bell curve. Now let me move on to the issue of governance. Singapore has done reasonably well by most measures, but we must never be complacent. Our accomplishments are not predictions for future successes. And there are many matrices of whether a country, a government has done well. Sometimes we get a good ranking, let it not get into our head. Sometimes we don't get such a good ranking, it's time for introspection, but also never let it get into our heart and wear us down. There will always be room for us to improve. But what is most important is for us to have the confidence and the conviction to do what we think is right for our people, by our people, and to see it through. There are no shortage of good ideas on what other countries, our countries can do. But one of the most difficult things is to execute the average ideas consistently. The average ideas executed consistently will beat that brilliant idea that is a flash in the pan. And in Singapore, we have the privilege to execute this consistently for many years. And that was what I shared with my counterparts in MOE. They always thought that Singapore has some brilliant technology or system. But the truth is, whatever MOE can deliver today, we thank our predecessors who have seen it through consistently for us. But on the other hand, let us not be complacent. Take the example of the adoption of technology, digitalization, and artificial intelligence. Countries that once trailed us are now seizing opportunities to build momentum and to leapfrog ahead. And a key advantage being that they have fewer legacy systems. This is a stark reminder to us that if we stand still, we will fall behind. And therefore, the public service will endeavor not just to do things better, we also need to do better things with our finite resources. An example is the way that the government is serving citizens and businesses, be it service SG centers MSOs, or the new SME Pro Enterprise offices. These are just ways that we are working across government to make services simpler, more connected, and more helpful to our people and businesses. Each of these reflect our determination to deliver greater value and to do better things with our finite resources. On the other hand, we must also not copy blindly, but be bold enough to look for our own solutions. Our founding leaders and the pioneer generation did exactly that. From introducing national service to safeguard our sovereignty and security, to setting up the EDB to attract investment, and the HDB to provide affordable and quality homes. We did not copy others, but we found our own way. And even for something like the CPF, we have continuously evolved it over the years, expanding from retirement savings to meet housing and healthcare needs, while providing stronger safety nets for our elderly and vulnerable. Each of these decisions took courage, clarity of vision, and a willingness to chart our path and the conviction to see it through. So it's not just as simple as just plucking an idea from some other country and copying it. But now I come to the most difficult challenge. Delivering with our people will require a new approach from our government and a new understanding with our people. Delivering with our people means that our government must be prepared to engage even before all policy details have been finalized internally. On the other hand, our people must also accept that not everyone's idea will be adopted in full or in part. And let me share a little vignette I learned from Minister Vivian Balakrishnan when I took over then MCYS from him. The first thing he told me was, Chun Sing, when you become the minister, you must consult widely. But remember, after you have consulted 100 people and you have chosen your idea, you must go back to the other 99 to explain to them why their idea was not chosen. It may be 99 or it may be even 100. And each of the 99 or 100 must be convinced why their idea was not chosen after they have given you their feedback. That was 14, 15 years ago. I think that still applies today. All of us will contribute ideas, just like in this house, but not all ideas may be implemented in full or in part. And we'll debate it, we'll take collective decisions, and we hope that we'll move forward in the right spirit. So the other thing is this. As we evolve our processes and services at speed to achieve timeliness and relevance, we must also accept that we may not always achieve that perfect or flawless product or policy if there was ever such a thing. What matters most is to learn and keep improving fast rather than to let the pursuit of perfection paralyze us from timely deployment of new solutions. And this is the spirit that CPF and GovTech has taken. No one in CPF or GovTech will claim that their products is perfect or flawless. They all know that they have to keep improving, but they all know that they have to be timely and relevant in their delivery. Now, as the challenges confronting Singapore are multi-dimensional, we will also need the public service to acquire new capabilities. The public service will continue to remain open and attract diverse talent, including mid-careerists, and provide opportunities for officers to gain exposure to the private and people sector. And now, increasingly important, we must also expose our officers to the international organizations. Because increasingly, we need to understand how the world is evolving, because increasingly, we must secure a place at the table where international rules are made. Otherwise, as the saying goes, we are either at the table or on the menu. From 1970s, the UNCLOS, to the recent debate on climate change, the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, and the cyber domains, many new rules are made on the international fronts, and we will need our people to be au fait with the developments in order to secure our interests. Next, After hearing all the many good ideas, this government will have the difficult task of balancing our public finances. We have been fortunate so far that we have been able to afford what we wanted to, delivering high-quality services and running a tight ship. And we have been prudent with our spending, saving a little year after year, investing these savings wisely and gradually building up our reserves and instituting rigorous safeguards to protect the reserves, making sure that we only spend the money that we really need to. However, just as over the course of this week, we have heard many new ideas, many new demands, and all of that will ultimately translate into some form of resources required. So this is even more important that in this House, we must be judicious to decide how we decide to spend our public funds and be honest with ourselves about the trade-offs. Everything we want to do more of means something less for either current or future needs. We should not and cannot pretend that there is somehow, somewhere, a free lunch. And we must be honest with our own residents where those trade-offs are. It also means making difficult political decisions such as raising taxes when we need to, as we have done for the GST increases, to ensure that our revenues continue to keep up with our spending needs. I can understand, I can appreciate the cause for us to spend more given our challenges. But I'm always reminded of this. Let's think about it. Where did our reserves come from? Our forefathers started saving in the 1960s. In the 1960s, we had the British withdrawal east of the Suez. My grandmother and her family lost their job overnight from Sembawang Naval Base. In the 1970s, we had the two oil crises. In the 1980s, we have the economic recession. In the 1990s, we have the Asian financial crisis. In the 2000s, we have the global financial crisis. Then we have, and of course, we have SARS and COVID. Weren't those tough times? Did any of our pioneers say that life was too hard and therefore we were not safe for the next generation? No, they didn't. No matter how tough those times were, and arguably there were moments that were even tougher than now, they have made it a point to save up for us. And we, today, we are benefiting from this. And I think it is only responsible of us to similarly hold on to this spirit. Of course, the government will do what we can to spend carefully, to take care of this generation. But let us not forget that we must also take care of future generations, although they are not here to vote for us here and now. But that is what makes Singapore special. That we never define success by how we do for ourselves in this generation only. We define our success by how well we enable the next generation to do even better than us. The T1, T2, and T3 that we enjoy nowadays, they were built by the previous generation for us. And now we are building the T5 for the next generation. This is the spirit of Singapore. In the many committees of supply debate that I have attended in this House, we have not had to make very difficult decisions on what to cut in order to fund what we want to do more. We have been fortunate. We have a growing pie. But it is not the natural order of things in most countries. Even so, we should maintain our discipline. Every grant, expenditure, and subsidies have a long tail. Once committed, they'll be hard to remove. In budget speak, or in MOF speak, we must not use up our white space, our future spending capacity without considering the need to cater to unforeseen circumstances, which will certainly happen from time to time, be it COVID or SARS. And this is where, go back to where we started. We must focus on growing the overall economic pie for us to have the options and the luxury to make easier decisions. The challenges ahead will be different from those in the past, but the core principles remain. To anticipate change, to be bold, to be innovative and pragmatic in finding solutions that work for us, and keep building a fair, strong, united Singapore for generations to come. Mr. Speaker, Singapore has come a long way in the 60 years since our independence. Our pioneer generation and founding leaders have built a nation upon the foundations of conviction, not convenience. From the very beginning, we have faced challenges head-on, never shirking our responsibility to one another nor to future generations. Together, we have weathered storms, overcome adversity, and emerged stronger each time. Through crises such as the Asian financial crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, we stood together. Government, businesses, community, citizens, supporting one another, overcoming challenges, and always promising one another that we will emerge stronger. These experiences have shown that our strength lies in our unity and our ability to trust and work with one another. Recently, I've just given out the scholarships to this year's PSC and MINDEF scholarship recipients. I shared with them this very simple message. When I was awarded the scholarship, it was SG 23. SG 23. Nobody told me the challenges ahead. Now we are SG 60. And I told this generation of scholarship holders, you are taking the scholarship at SG 60. Your job is to get us to SG 100 and beyond. If you have a doubt, there's a cooling off period, you don't take the scholarship. But none of them flinch. I'm proud of them. Because I never promised them that if you get a scholarship with the Public Service Commission or MINDEF, that life will be a bed of roses. And I want them to know that there's nothing that guarantee that we will get to SG 100. And I just told them that, well, if I'm so lucky to be able to see the fireworks at the Padang of 9th of August 2065, maybe they can spare me a pair of NDP tickets. So to take Singapore to SG 100 and beyond, we will need leaders at every level of society. A nation of lions led by lions. To have a strong sense of mission and the gumption to defy the odds. To remember our vulnerabilities as a nation, but never be shackled by them. A people who dare to dream and innovate and are willing to match our aspirations with our perspirations. Last but not least, we will live by those values that we will put our collective before self, putting the we before me and taking care of one another so that we can be truly proud that if you want to have the best opportunities in life, anywhere in the world, you want to be born in Singapore. So I thank all members for your vigorous and constructive debate over the course of this week. Your insights, ideas will help shape our policies and programs going forward. And as we chart our path towards SG 100 and beyond, let us stand united in purpose in this House. For there will be no challenges too great, too daunting, that we can't overcome together. And our commitment, as everyone has said, is to build a better future for everyone, including those Singaporeans who are yet to be born. And together, we will write the next chapter of Singapore's history together. And this government will not only deliver for Singaporeans, this government will deliver with Singaporeans.